every agent I know is a control freak, so I'm not going to try to exclude myself from that group. And it's the ability to let go of that control and trust that the person that you've hired is able to do those things. And if they don't, then there's an opportunity to correct it and correct it in a way that's positive, right? And it's positive reinforcement as opposed to finger pointing. We go back and we've had this conversation time and time again and going, where was the breakdown? The breakdown was in the system.
Yes.
Right. Whose fault is that as a leader? It's your fault as a leader. If there was a breakdown, whether in communication or, in a process or, initial intake, whatever it looks like, that's your fault because that's how you lead, right?
Absolutely.
It's not pointing fingers. And I think if agents can understand that, that carries into their business, whether you're interfacing with a client or you're interfacing with, a contractor or a staff person. So that's been, I think, the key to our success.
Welcome to the Leadership That Shines podcast, the weekly leadership training show that's built around 3 values that show up in everything we do: impact, influence, and growth. Whether you're leading a team, building a business, or learning to lead yourself first, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Natalie Davis. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Leadership That Shines podcast. I am your host, Natalie Davis, and I'm so excited to be back with all of you today. And today is a little bit of a different day. Yes, we've had guests on the show in the past, but today's guest, I have had the opportunity to work with, and I know, and so it makes it really unique. And leading up to today's podcast recording, I had like the mix of emotions, right? Am I excited? Am I intimidated? What will come up? It's one of those moments where you get to have a mirror really reflecting on who you are as a leader. And for me, it's this kind of moment of reflection on how have I been able to show up for someone that I've worked with. So today we have the honor of having Adam Touni on the show. And Adam, I want to say welcome. Thank you so much
Natalie,
for taking the time out to join us today.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you.
Absolutely. Adam, the reason that I invited you to the show is that we've had the opportunity to work together for over 6 years now. I think it's a little bit over 6 years.
Over 6 years.
And I've had the opportunity to watch you, I'm going to say, transform, change, grow, shrink. Every season of entrepreneurship that you could imagine, you have gone through in this time frame. And I've also watched you grow as a leader and truly stepping into your purpose over the last couple of years. And on one of our recent calls, there was just that download that I said, you need to ask him to come on the show and share his message with our listeners. And so you said yes. So thank you for saying yes.
Thank you for asking.
So this show, yes, absolutely. This show's a little different because I've worked with Adam for the last couple of years and I know a lot about him. I know a lot about his business. And so because I've witnessed and observed and helped and worked alongside him for all of these years, I thought it would be valuable for all of you all to learn a little bit more about Adam. So Adam, I think that's where we're going to start is if you could just take a moment and let our listeners know a little bit about you, who you are as an entrepreneur and business owner. And then we will dive into some of the things that you've seen in terms of your leadership journey over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I'll start where I currently am. So, I'm 44 years old. I'm a dad first and foremost, a husband, and I lead a team with my business partner, Catherine Carroll, which we built over the course of 7 years. But Kat and I have had a relationship going back over 10 years now, and it's a team of 7 now. Actually, I have now going on to 8 agents pretty soon. And it's a combination of agents and staff, and we're based in the Silicon Valley, which is where Stanford University is located. And what's unique about our team is that we have very specific roles, whereas other teams, they might have a lot of sales associates, all kind of just selling and they share resources. Here, we really work as a beehive, and it's different. It's really different. And it's different in how we structure our fee splits. It's different in activities that we do. It's just, and we can go into that from there. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I started out 20 years ago when I went to law school, and I just real estate just clicked with me. And it clicked because I grew up in a family where my dad's an architect, but my parents are serial entrepreneurs. They've got double degrees and they ran a carpet cleaning business. So, they, that's how they made money. And they started to invest in real estate in the Bay Area some 30 plus years ago. And it's how we bonded. We spent time at, Home Depot renovating duplexes and single family homes. And that's what I did as a kid. And I loved it. So I ended
Yeah.
up pursuing real estate after graduating from law school and finishing the bar. And it was really what I've been doing as a professional for the past 16 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Quite the journey. I know just in
Yeah.
your description of where you are today, these are the things that have happened over the last couple of decades, right? Like just from becoming a dad and getting into the real estate industry, right? You taking yourself from being a practitioner in the legal field and coming over to the real estate space. A lot of similarities for California. I think there's more overlap than in some of the other states. But truly understanding like these are the things that I enjoy and carrying that over into your business. And the beehive concept for the team structure, I think, is absolutely spot on. And we'll start there if that's okay with you, Adam.
Yeah.
I think really, and how you've structured your team, how you all have structured the business, and in understanding that you have strengths and skills that you're bringing to the table, and you have a partner that has the same, and in this case, you have strengths and skill sets that complement one another. But you all are so disciplined in staying in your lane in terms of the operation of the company. Talk to us a little bit about that and the value of having those roles identified so that you can stay within your lane.
Yeah, I have to say, I have the best business partner you can imagine. And she's a great friend and an ally. And I've learned so much from her. And yeah, she's a dear, dear person to me. So Kat really showed me how to create systems and how to templatize and create processes and workflows that I didn't have in my business that I always wanted, but I didn't realize like, oh, this is what we really need. I'd talk about it, but I didn't know how to implement it. And
Right.
she was the one that came in and really did that for the team. Um, Whereas my background is really, I've got this legal training and I can issue spot and um, I I think my real gift, no, it's not I think, I know my real gift is bringing people together. And I grew up here in the Bay Area. So it's unique in the sense that I've seen the valley change over the past 4 decades. And my network is both, you know, is both deep and it covers that 4 decade span, right?
Yeah.
And it's not just in real estate, but it's in all aspects of life. So
Yeah.
I enjoy that. That's what gives me energy is bringing people together and sharing ideas. And so that's where I've stayed in my lane. Although there has been some transference over time, and I've learned a lot from Kat, and I believe she's learned from me. And so we definitely do complement one another and have learned from each other. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting that you say that. I think in one of our early coaching sessions, I remember like just talking about implementing new systems and processes. And the next time we got on the call, you were like, oh no, Kat built it. It's done. And I'm just in shock because that is not my skill set. So I would have to lean into somebody else to say, who's going to build this out, right? Like we have all of the business development pieces, the visionary leader, right? I can see big picture. I can see the gaps within what we've created. And then Kat is able to step in to say, okay, let me give us a system and a process to support the vision that you have for the team.
Yeah, and it's true. She has also big visions and ideas for the team, and together we've worked together for so long that it's easy. It's just easy to implement and it's smooth and it flows easily. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, your journey to this team that you have today was not the starting point for your real estate career. You were kind of tapped on the shoulder to expand. Talk to us a little bit about that initial step into leadership, because I think that was your first ask to step into leadership for within this industry, at least?
Yeah. So I started out at a small brokerage and I had a great mentor. His name's Steve Pierce. I had lunch with him on last Friday. That's how close we are.
I love that.
I started
Yeah.
out 16 years ago with and changed my life. And I was more like his junior apprentice for the first year, and then very quickly took to the business and became like a junior partner. And during that time, we recognized that there was things that we didn't have, skill sets that we didn't, that we needed. And we sought out Wendy Kanasami, who was a great buyer's agent, a great agent just in general, was a mom, spoke Taiwanese, had a background in finance, and just was just so sharp. And three of us worked together for nearly 5 years. And at that point in time, I was in my early 30s and had become friends with Mark McLaughlin, the former CEO of Pacific Union. And I reached out to him. I said, Mark, I think I'm ready to make a move. And he said, Adam, your timing's impeccable because I am redlining lease space for an office in Palo Alto. And that's where I started my career. I started in Palo Alto, it was a small brokerage in downtown Palo Alto. And then Mark, being the CEO of what was the largest independent brokerage in California, prior to Compass moving in, the timing couldn't have been better. And that's where we really started. And that was my first, I'd say entree into real estate and leadership.
Into the leadership. Yeah, absolutely. What were some of those early lessons that you learned quickly into transitioning into that role?
I didn't know a lot. I recognized quickly I didn't know, and I'm really glad I didn't. Mark offered the management position, and I'm so glad that Kat took the management position because of the systems and the processes and the reading the P&L and understanding a balance sheet and all of that stuff. And it was, for me, it was really based on relationships and based on, which I think a lot of agents, build their business, and that's fine. But I look back now and I go, oh wow, I got lucky, and realize that that's where I have my strengths and Kat has her strengths. So Kat started out as my manager at an office of literally none. So it was myself, Wendy, my partner at the time, and Kat, and we worked together for a couple of years before we actually decided to create a team. And that was right around the time that Compass acquired Pacific Union, which was a big shift.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that is a theme that I've seen just in your journey of the business, the different iterations of the business over the years, is that you have these opportunities, and I'm saying them as that. You have these opportunities to present themselves, and you have been quick to respond to ensure that you're saying yes to the things that you want to say yes to, and making sure that it still fits within what you are helping to achieve and grow and build. And so the transition to Compass was one that you truly evaluated and you were able to find a way to utilize the resources that were offered by the company and couple those with the systems that you already had in place to really leverage the three of you at that time.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they were a growing company, and they were trying to figure, or it was trying to figure itself out at the time, similar to what we were doing. And we realized that first year working together, that we each had our individual way of doing things, and that there needed to be a consistent offering for our clients. And so creating the templates and the cohesion and all of that took some time. But after about a year, we saw the cohesion, we saw the benefit, and we saw how that had an exponential factor in us, just doing the business, so to speak. And Compass had similar growing pains. They had acquired a lot of brokerages. They were now coast to coast in all the major metro markets, and they were still working on their tools, and they were still working on their workflows and templates and processes and whatnot. But they had some incredible offerings, and Compass Concierge being one. That here we were a small team and using our own money to do improvements for clients' homes when we work with sellers specifically. And then Compass came out with with this offering where we could use Compass Concierge. And I wrote Robert and said, thank you so much. And I still have the email to this day,
Yeah.
because it completely changed our business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's the important piece is understanding and seeing the changes that are happening within the industry, within the market, regardless of whatever industry you're in. And this is not just real estate specific. I think any type of sales, if it's products or services, recognizing that there are shifts that are happening along the way, and then realizing that you yourself are more than likely in a position that you need to make some adjustments and changes to be relevant with those changes that are coming along the way. And you all have done that, I think, over and over again, because one thing that's consistent within the real estate industry, I know, is it is ever changing. It's constantly changing.
Ever changing. And
Yes.
I recently was talking to Mark's wife. This is maybe the past year, and I was recommending that she work with you. And she said, well, what is it about Natalie that, makes her so special? And I've said, she helped me look around the corners and see what was coming down the
Yeah.
pike. And that ability is so invaluable, right? As to,
Thank you.
right now, the hot topic is AI, and it's not going to go
Yes.
anywhere. And
No.
so if you don't embrace it, then it's going to be a bumpy road.
I was going to say, will you be relevant? That's always the question.
Yeah,
It always comes down to that. Like
that's really it. That's it. And I look
Yes.
back over the past 6 years and I go, we had COVID and we had to be nimble and figure that out. We had multiple bank failures and figure that out. We had, during COVID, we had the PPP loans and had to figure that out as small business owners. And there is constant change in this business.
Yeah.
And so to be nimble and to be open is critical to being a leader.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Is this something that you observed, like being nimble, just watching that? Is this something that you've observed in other leaders and mentors and coaches with it? Well, other than myself, other coaches within your life that have helped to influence that? Or is this something that you naturally understand the value and importance of that you've just embodied over time?
Like I said, I grew up in a house with two serial entrepreneurs, and
Yes.
we ran a business out of my parents' house. And so it was what I just knew. And I saw they had to be nimble. And that was accommodating clients, and that was being available, and that was seeing shifts in the business and whatnot. And so that's something that was really just part of my childhood and through my teenage years. And then I sought out leaders who were nimble. I sought out Mark. I sought first out Steve, because I liked his practice. I liked how he positioned himself. I liked the idea that he had this incredible background. And then I saw Mark, and he was doing the same thing for this, significantly larger company. And then I looked at Robert, and to see what he was doing on a national scale was so impressive and moving at a pace that was unrelenting. That's the type of leadership that I've been looking for. It's just to move quickly and be open to change.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And Adam, when you're looking at what you've built, right? It's you and you and Kat and Wendy that, where it's like, okay, we're going to roll out this expansion to now a team, your team of, I should say the company's team of going on 8 agents and staff members and over 700 million in sales. There has been some progression and growth, to say the least, over the years. What are some of those key things that you've learned that have really stood out in your leadership journey, going from that, it's the 3 of us and my systems are not that great, to what you have now that is really a well-oiled machine that is attracting the attention of a lot of practitioners in your market?
I'd say I would attribute it to the systems and processes, right?
Yeah.
The having defined roles, because real estate, our culture has changed. We've moved to an on-demand culture, and being in the heart of the Silicon Valley, it moves faster than anywhere else in the world. Period. Stop.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
That's why the values of the homes are what they are. It's why the smartest people in the world are all here trying to create a new vision of the world, good or bad. It's what happens here, right? And they have the ability to adapt and move quickly. And so if you don't move like that, then, again, you're going to have a hard time. I think the growth for us specifically is leaning into I would say leaning into our superpowers, right? Leaning into the fact that I was a great collaborator and that I could bring people together. And Kat leaning into the fact that she was great with systems. And we looked at, for Wendy, we looked to her ability to work, especially with buyers and how technical she was. And she could analyze markets and match make better than, any one of us. And so we all leaned into our skill set and then had the support of a team that over time we saw that, okay, maybe we had them in one position and that position wasn't necessarily the right fit for them. But instead of letting that person go necessarily, let's see if we can create an opportunity where that person can lean into their superpowers respectively. And that's what happened over the progression of the past 7 years. I want to add that we ran the numbers recently, and that yes, in the past 7 years we've done over 700 million in sales. But as individuals for lifetime sales, we've done over 1.4 billion dollars in sales. And this is something that this is not to be braggadocious. It's just to say, hey, this is a big deal. Like we've been doing this for a long time. We know what we're doing, and I'm proud of it.
Absolutely. As you should be. Congratulations on that. I'm so glad that you guys were able to pull that information and truly paint a clear picture of what you've built over the years. Yes, absolutely. I think that's amazing. And when you talk about leaning into the superpowers, I think this is a rule that you've carried through for everyone on the team, right? Not just the owners of the team. And so you truly embrace this idea of having a sense of empowerment with everyone that's on the team. Talk to us a little bit about that, like leading in a way where everyone feels empowered, because I've witnessed it and I've seen it where the team just feels empowered to truly own whatever their task or responsibilities are throughout the business.
Yeah, that comes with maturation and being a good leader. Every agent I know is a control freak, so I'm not going to try to exclude myself from that group. And it's the ability to let go of that control and trust that the person that you've hired is able to do those things. And if they don't, then there's an opportunity to correct it in a way that's positive, right? And it's positive reinforcement as opposed to finger pointing. We go back and we've had this conversation time and time again and going, where was the breakdown? The breakdown was in the system.
Yes.
Right. And whose fault is that as a leader? It's your fault as a leader. If there was a breakdown, whether in communication or, in a process or, initial intake, whatever it looks like, that's your fault because that's how you lead. Right.
Absolutely.
It's not pointing fingers. And I think if agents can understand that carries into their business, whether you're interfacing with the client or you're interfacing with, a contractor or a staff person. So that's been, I think, the key to our success.
Yeah, absolutely. And those conversations you're having on an ongoing basis. This is
Daily.
Not just a one-off or reactionary when something goes awry. These are constant and ongoing conversations that you have.
These are daily conversations.
Yeah.
And then
absolutely.
taking a time to come together and, once quarterly have a conversation about, hey, this is a two-way street. How are things working for you? And letting us know, how can we course correct? Because that feedback is just as important as us giving them feedback, especially in the case when it comes to our staff.
100%. Just that reflection. How are you showing up as a leader? And I talk about this on the show all the time. We think that we're showing up as a leader in one way. And then when we ask the people around us and they're like, that's not how you actually show up, especially when stakes are high or things are fast moving or, there's a lot of pressure on the business or on you as an individual. The way we show up it often shifts and changes. And it's important for us to see how we're showing up as a leader in those instances, because that gives us an opportunity to correct if we want to truly grow. And I mean, you can choose to ignore it if you wish, but that's not going to help you in progressing and growing as a leader.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I have a colleague who's based out of Blackhawk, which is in the East Bay. Her name's
Okay.
Juju. And we had lunch a few years back. And one thing she said to me was, Adam, no one's going to outwork me on my team. And it's so true. She gets up at 5 a.m. and she works and that you build respect and you build, uh, and people will get behind your mission if you show up like that. If you're consistent, you're kind, and you outwork everyone. And
Yes,
and that's the case. That's leadership. I remember talking to
absolutely.
Mark. He would be taking calls at 5 o'clock in the morning on his spin bike. I had lunch with Steve, as I mentioned. He's in his late 70s now, and he's working out, and he's there every day. And he was like just this constant force. My dad's the same way. 6 days a week, he
Yeah.
still works. He doesn't need to, but that's just who he is. That's who he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Adam, you touched on something that you're correct. We have talked about quite a bit over the years, and it comes back to this, when there's a breakdown along the way, and it always starts with the same question, like, what step of the process did you skip? And that goes back to when you're skipping processes that you have in place, it is going to strain the system. Talk to us a little bit about that, because I know that you've learned about those. You've
I've
learned
made
that
a lot
lesson.
of mistakes. I thought I was like, oh, okay, I know this client. We have a great rapport. This is our third transaction or whatever. And you've got to treat each relationship as though it's new, each client as though they're going through the process for the first time, and just slow it down and just slow down the process. And I uh, I'm just as guilty of it, where I may have multiple things going on and miss a detail or whatnot. And it's just so important just to go back to the basics. I played football
Right.
for 7 years. It's blocking and tackling. It's fundamentals.
Yeah.
It's just you just follow each step. And when you followed each step, you've done exactly what you needed to do. You can't dictate the outcome, right? There's so
Right.
many extenuating circumstances, but you can go, hey, I left everything, to use another, football analogy, on the field, and I didn't,
On the
I
field.
didn't miss anything, right?
Yes.
And that's the thing that I've worked on most over the past several years is go, hey, I did the best I can. And when I fall short of doing that, it's just acknowledging it and going, oh, well,
Right.
you're right. Not to get defensive and go, this is an opportunity for me to grow and go, okay, I
Exactly.
could have handled this differently. Yep.
Yeah.
Duly noted.
Absolutely. I know listen, if you have not had the opportunity to do that reflection and realize that there are lessons out there for you, then you're not doing the reflection, because there are lessons out there. We all fall into that, right? Where we are so laser focused on one thing, or we have multiple things that we're having to focus our attention on, and we happen to skip a step. Not intentionally, because we don't think it's important. We just happen to skip a step, and then that throws everything else off. But we don't realize that everything was thrown off because we skipped a step, unless we give ourselves the moments to reflect and go back into that to see what happened here, what went sideways. That's oftentimes what happens. We don't stop and reflect when there results in fabulous wins. It's like, oh, we skipped a
Right.
step. Amazing.
Right. No, that's the thing, is like, it's you learn the most from when you make the mistake, you skip the step, and I think that's also part of maturation too, from when I started out to where I am today, is just it's just acknowledging that we don't know everything, and that there's
Yeah.
knowledge that you can only get better in this business as long as you are nimble and you are open and you're humble. And then it becomes something different, and it's become totally different for me. It's become a spiritual practice, and it's
Yes.
really changed. And I see it. I was speaking with a journalist fairly recently, and I referenced Jiro Dreams of Sushi. I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary, but it was about this gentleman who had a hole in the wall restaurant somewhere in Tokyo, and it was one of the first docs that Netflix ever did. And he was a craftsman, and he had been perfecting his craft over decades. And he had a small restaurant, and he made the most beautiful sushi. And he took so much time in making the rice, and preparing the sushi, and he'd only have, 8 people at the counter in a given night, but he was booked out for years. And that's it. That's a craft.
Wow.
That's something that you can
Absolutely.
take pride in.
Yes.
And we live, especially here in the Valley, where people are moving constantly and there's a lot of disruption. To have something that you can grow with is really special. And that's what
Mhm.
it really has become for me.
I love that. I love that. I want to come back to the spiritual practice piece because I think that's a huge element of your leadership journey or just a segment of your leadership journey that we've had an opportunity to spend some time in.
Yeah.
I am not licensed in that space, so I'm not going there, but we've had some opportunity to dive into that. But before we go there, I would love to spend a little bit of time talking about the community that you've built around you because you've mentioned some of the mentors that you've reached out to, and those are the individuals that are really in that advisory role for you. But you've also done an impeccable job of connecting with other professionals, peers across the country. And you've built this really solid community, especially for leaders and entrepreneurs. Oftentimes we get into this mindset that we're in this silo and it's just us and no one will understand. But you've truly built this beautiful community and there was intention in building this community. Talk to us about that, a little bit about like
Yeah.
building that support system, that community,
Yeah.
peers, people that you can lean on and lean into when you need.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I always looked to leadership and looked to mentors and looked toward when I was starting out as a law clerk and then as a real estate agent, just started getting some traction. And so I just benefited because I saw that as a hack, right? Like I could get there faster because this person's made the mistakes and I don't have to make those same mistakes. And if I'm open to
That's
it,
genius. I love the way
right?
that you look at that. It is. It
And
absolutely
I
is.
talked to my
Yes.
wife about it. She was in Hollywood for years. She goes, I didn't seek out the mentorship that you did. And she goes, I regret not having done that. And
Right.
and it's true. That's why we're, I'll tell you, I'm an open book. I'm, a family coach, a therapist, I've had trainers. I've literally every aspect of my life I've sought out. You and I have worked together for
Yeah.
6 years. Someone
Yeah.
recently said, "You have a real estate coach?" I go, "Yeah, she's great. Everybody should have a coach." you
Yeah.
know, and
Exactly. Yes.
that's really the case. So I would go to these events nationally, right? I would go to a Compass retreat, or I would go to, some other event. Oftentimes, where you're speaking at these engagements,
Mhm.
and I noticed that people um, would have these very surfacey conversations, the surface level conversations, and then immediately ask for my contact information, and that was it. I'd never hear from them again. And what I realized is like, no, you go deep and you be very intentional about the people that you connect with. That's, in my opinion, I think that's the best way to create a network. And so last year, I was at a dinner with a handful of agents, very intentional. My dear friend, who's also a Compass agent in Napa, Chris Metters, I learned from him how to really put dinners together and how to bring people together. He does it better than anyone I know. And he invited a group of agents, and had been an agent that I had met some years ago at a retreat, and she brought up the idea of creating a panel that we could essentially take this on the road. We could take this on the road. We could create topics that people would be interested in, and so the leadership teams or the regional management for these respective areas would be interested in having us join them. And initially, it was just going to be California. And quickly we realized we're like, no, this is something much bigger. This is much bigger. And so what we did is we started extending invitations to our colleagues who we really respected, who were kind and caring and collaborative and
Yeah.
ran businesses the same way we did, but also had skill sets that we didn't have. And so over the course of the past 12 months, Gretchen Coley and I, who's the agent that I was alluding to, have built what's called the Master Class Roadshow. And it's now up to 16 agents, and we're in, from Seattle to Scottsdale to the Silicon Valley to New York. and everywhere in between. Um, we are a group of agents who have, done a lot of business, but more importantly, are willing to share. And so
Mm-hmm.
we have started doing these panels. And we started off earlier this year in San Francisco, and we've done the Pacific Northwest. We're about to do the SoCal Summit. It's 500 agents for Compass agents. We're about to, after that, will be followed by a Tahoe Summit. So it's an economic summit that Compass does. We have the Pacific Northwest Regional Summit, and we're working on possibly the Hamptons and the National Retreat. So it went from a conversation to hey, I think that's a good idea, to a group of agents getting together, to something much larger than either of us now. And
Yeah.
it's been so much fun. And I've learned the most from watching these peers who are just, in my opinion, my humble opinion, like just a notch above. And it's just fun to watch them like, oh, wow, that's a good idea. Yeah, that's a good,
Yes.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
And, I was in Tennessee 2 weeks ago, and I was hanging out with some friends, but I flew in on a day early, and I went
Yeah.
and met with Aaron Kruger, who's the number one agent in
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee. And
Mm-hmm.
Aaron has this amazing team, and she is just meticulous in everything she does, and she's got this she's just kind-hearted, and just she was so willing to share, and we spent an hour together, and it was just reinforced like, okay, I'm on the right path.
Yes.
This is cool. Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Adam, I think what is so great when you're looking at creating this mastermind, this collective, the bringing together of these fabulous folks, is that there's alignment with the values as well as the alignment with the business, right? And this desire to continue to level up, leverage, create better experiences, just improve your business, whatever your goal may be, however it's worded or whatever it looks like. But there's this alignment from the personal side. Like, you also have to be a good person. Like, we're not going to truly invite the people that don't align on the values side if they
Yeah.
have
I
the
mean,
production numbers.
we all know it. You and I have been in this industry for a long time, and you have some amazing producers, right? And sometimes those amazing producers aren't the most fun to be around. And that doesn't really matter with this
Right.
group. It's like, yeah, be an amazing producer and also be a kind person and treat everybody
Yes.
the same way, right? Treat
Yes.
the CEO the same way as you would the janitor, because
Yes.
that's critical. It's a spirit of collaboration, not competition, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what makes brokering different than in my opinion, law. And I saw that early on. I
Yeah.
was 28 years old. I finally passed the bar, finally was ready to start my career. And I was like, this is a zero sum game. Someone's got to win and someone's got to lose. If you
Exactly.
do brokering well, it's win-win, right? People could have the worst day, worst experience, loss of a family member,
Mm-hmm.
or a divorce, or what, but you're helping them transition and move on to the next chapter. And hopefully the person on the other side is trying to do the same thing. And if you do
Right.
it well, it is a win-win. So
Yeah.
I think that's just the spirit of uh, the industry, right? If it's done properly.
I agree. I agree. And I think that there are some people that have missed the boat on that and not realizing it. So thank you for not just embodying it, but also finding other people that align with it and then sharing it with our listeners. Because I think when we look at what we're building, we can have a strong desire and still create an environment where it's win-win for those that we're serving and that we're working alongside. And I think that's an important piece for people to remember, is that at the end of the day, you should be able to sleep well at night
That's right.
because you've
Integrity
done
is
the right
everything.
thing.
Integrity is
Yes,
everything.
is
It goes back
everything.
to, the steps you take and not missing a step. It's how you
Yes.
treat people. It's being open. Integrity is everything.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Adam, I want to take a shift and go in the personal direction before we wrap up our time together, because you started to touch on this in terms of just the spiritual piece of the growth, your personal growth and expansion. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs out there, we get head down and laser focused on the business side, and then we look up and we realize that we're burnt out, or we've done too much, or we no longer love what we're working on. You have been really intentional about recognizing the maintenance of that harmony within your life, all key areas, right? You are a dad and a husband and a business owner, but you yourself have to show up as the best version of yourself as well. So you've prioritized you over the last couple of years, which has been wonderful because I think it has definitely played a part in a lot of the growth, expansion, and success that you've seen. Talk to us about that shift into prioritizing self, because it is
Yeah,
truly key.
that's been the biggest shift. And it came out of just some of the worst burnout I've ever had a couple of years ago. And it was just, nonstop for year after year after year, and not taking the time for myself and not taking the time to say no. I was definitely, and I'm a recovering people pleaser, and so that's where the ability to say no and not on, it's just not on my terms, and establish boundaries is so critical.
Yes.
And in the past 2 years in particular, that's been the biggest shift in my life. And as a result, I put myself first, and that was a really hard thing as a dad and as a husband. Um, but the things I do to show up and be my best self, is working out every morning. I get up at 5 o'clock and I'll meditate for 20 minutes, and then I'll go to we have a little gym in our house, and I'll work out for 30 to 60 minutes. And then the best version of myself, and I can help out and take care of my daughter and get her to school and do whatever I need to do, and then show up for my team. Um, the same goes for, I don't drink. I quit drinking 8 years ago. And that was a huge component of my personal growth, was that I needed to get healthy. And I lost 20, 30 pounds, got back in the gym. I've always been an athlete, and I forgot what that was like. And so for me to get back and work out on a daily basis, do yoga, learn how to do transcendental meditation, those things, that just becomes a part of you. And for years I was just picking up the pieces, and I was so focused on doing that one piece, and I would be really hard on myself if I didn't do it. And then I go, I'm going to get back to it. It's just like, right now it's really busy, and I need to be mindful of what, this season of life, it is really busy, and I know I'll get back to it because I trust myself. And that's the biggest shift, is once you're able to say no, set boundaries, work from a place of integrity, then all of this flows. It's really easy. It's
Yeah.
really easy because it's clear as day. Do I want to work with this person? No. And I get that. Like, you're starting out in this industry and you're an agent and you're just hungry to get the business. Hey, sometimes you got to work with people that you're not too crazy about.
Right.
But that's just part of the process, right?
Right.
I still make mistakes. And there's occasions where, I think, I'm like, oh no, maybe this will work out, and it doesn't. And I just get there a lot faster if it doesn't work out, and don't get defensive about it because it was an oversight. So yeah, I think that personal journey was huge for me. And that, I'm proud. I'm more proud of that than I am any dollar figure on number of houses we sold or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The accomplishments are secondary, right? That becomes the byproduct. It's, you've truly had this opportunity to, like you said, just in setting boundaries. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, if you have a team or you're a solo agent and you're working with customers and clients, oftentimes will lose those boundaries, right? Like, they need to be available when their clients need them. And so they show up whenever their clients request, or they feel that they have to constantly work on the next thing, constantly working towards the goal and forgetting about themselves. And so just, I think with that initial piece that you mentioned, being able to set boundaries for yourself, so that you can, like, truly just it's respect for self, right? And in terms of your own personal journey. For people that have never reached this crossroads, how would you encourage them to start setting boundaries if they've never had the opportunity or realization that they needed to?
I would say start with practicing saying no to things. Just,
Yeah.
you have a visceral reaction, right? The gut and the mind is connected. We know that.
Yes.
And your body will tell you if you're not numbing yourself out with, TikTok or alcohol or being a workaholic, which we see everywhere. But if you really just check in with yourself and your initial reaction is, no, I don't want to necessarily work with this person, or I don't want to go and do this thing, or whatever that
Mhm.
is. And it's listening to that inner voice. And if you do that and you follow through with it and you say
Yeah.
no, it's like working out. You're building a muscle. And the more often you do it, the easier it gets. And
Yes.
so that's where I would start if you're in a position where you haven't done that.
Yeah. I think that's huge. Probably 12 years ago, 13 years ago or so, I read the book Year of Yes. And I feel that like there needs to be the book on the other end, like the other bookend of that, because not only did I read the Year of Yes and then I implemented that into my life, there was an entire year that I said yes to every opportunity that came my way. But then I had this addiction to the yes, right? It was like, well, yes. And I feel important because they're asking me, like, why wouldn't I say yes to that? Just for our listeners, that is typically a lot of ego that's built into that. You got to let that go. You,
Mhm.
you just want to release that and do the check that Adam mentioned. Like, do the gut check. Is it something that you truly want, or is your ego wanting to be stroked for a moment? And just if the answer is the latter, then it's probably a no. Just say no and be comfortable and at peace with that response.
Yeah. And then I mean, that's a whole different, yeah, that's a whole different conversation. But just the awareness to know that you're operating from your ego as opposed to, what's
Yes.
best for yourself. And
Yeah.
that just takes work and time, just to be aware. And it becomes very meta. And that's why I meditate, as I know when I'm not my best self. And
Mm-hmm.
if I show up not as my best self, it will affect the outcome of the negotiation. It will affect how I speak to that client, right?
Yes.
It's going to affect how I conduct myself as a husband or as a dad.
Yeah.
And let the ability to step back and witness the thoughts and witness how you're feeling in the moment, that is meditation. And
Yeah.
so people focus on it's the action or the breathing or no, it's not what it is. It's to
Right.
know that in the moment, you're not showing up as your best self. And what can you do? Take a breath, step back, count to five, whatever it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's so spot on that if the listeners go back a couple of episodes, I had another Natalie that was on the show a few episodes back, and she speaks about this, like how we get so caught up in the practice, right? It's I have to have the perfect cup of coffee, and I have to sit in my chair, and I have to get the journal out, and I have to do this, and in all of that, you forget about the being. Like the entire reason that you're doing all of that is so that you can create these moments to just be and witness and observe. And so we get caught up in the action items like check the list. Yes, the coffee, the journal, the pen, the book, what have you, the music's playing, whatever that may be. Those are not the important pieces. The important piece is the actual practice itself of being able to observe.
That's to
Yeah.
observe and then carry it throughout your day.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. Oh my gosh. Adam, are there any other tips or insights that you would like to leave our listeners with that you've gained from your leadership journey that we haven't covered so far today?
Yeah. I'm doing some regional events where I've been asked to speak, and specifically around the buyer broker agreement. And
Yes.
the question is, how do you, retain value? There's all this talk about, commission
Mm,
compression, and I don't care whatever your percentage is. Your percentage is your percentage. But I would ask you, and I'm going to do this with the group that I speak to in about a month, a couple of groups I speak to in about a month. Is do you love yourself? And
mm,
it's a hard question because I think it's we enter this business and you can get beat up a lot in this business, and people can point fingers and but do you love yourself? Do you really love yourself? And if you can say yes to that, then it's really easy to ask for what your value is. It's really easy. And if you don't, then you got to start doing the work, and that's the hardest part. It's not a fee. It's not a
yeah,
fee. It's something so much bigger than that.
yeah.
And and so that's where I would start, and that's where I think we should stop.
I love that, Adam. I think that's a fabulous question to ask. And as you were talking about that, just posing that question today, if you ask me that today in this moment, my answer is 100% yes. But I did take that pause to think, had you asked me that 10 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago, I think my answer would have been most of the time,
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's not enough. I'll tell you,
It's
just
not
from my
enough.
own
It's
personal
not
journey,
enough.
it's not
It's not
enough.
enough. Yeah. It's not
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
And, that's where the deep work is. And that's where it
Yeah.
becomes the practice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Adam, this has been absolutely amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sharing some insight and background in your own personal life. So your own personal journey as well. And definitely all of the nuggets for the listeners. I know that I had tons of takeaways and we connect all the time. So I still
We
had
do.
tons of takeaways. All of our guests on the show get one last question. It is the one question that's the scripted question that I leave everyone with, and it's what I leave the listeners with. I would love to pose the same question to you, Adam. 10 years from now, 100 years from now, what have you, whatever time in the future, how would you like to be remembered as a leader?
It's something that comes up often and it's quoted often, but it's how did you make that person feel? Right. And I want to make sure that my legacy is I treated people with kindness, and that's how they remember me. And if I can do that, I've done my job, you know? So that's it.
I love that. Adam, thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been an absolute pleasure. We'll make sure that we put your contact information in the show notes. He's a real estate agent, so he's searchable. But we'll make sure that we drop it in the show notes. Thank you for taking the time out to give us insight about your life, your business, and congratulations on the growth and progress that you've had over the last up teen years. It's been beautiful to watch. I'm honored to be a part of it and truly honored to have had you on the show today. Thank you.
And I couldn't have done it without you. That's not a plug. That's just the truth. So
Thank
thank you,
you.
Natalie. I'm truly
Absolutely.
grateful.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. You bet. For
Thank
our
you.
listeners, you all know if you are not subscribing to the show, do so. Subscribe on your favorite platform. Actually, subscribe on all of them. I'd love that too. But make sure you check out the newsletter that drops every Monday as well on LinkedIn under the Flamingo Files, where we do a little bit of a deep dive where we extract all of the lessons and the takeaways so that you can apply it to your life and to your business so that you can continue to see change and have that impact, influence, and growth that we strive to have here at the Leadership That Shines show. Until next time, we'll see you all soon.
Thank you for spending time growing with me on the Leadership That Shines podcast. Every episode is built around the values of impact, influence, and growth. And I want all three of those to show up in how you lead starting this week. If this episode added value to your week, share it with a leader in your world who is ready to grow. Subscribe and follow so that you never miss a week. And I'll see you in the next episode.